morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, whenever you happen to be listening. I am thrilled to welcome to the show today Trisha Krautkramer. She is the General Manager of Branding at Acuity Insurance in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. So I have interacted with Trisha quite a bit over the years. When I was on the agency side, we had quite a few projects with Acuity, but for some reason, we never met in person. I've been to the beautiful home office up there in Sheboygan, and for some reason, I don't know, I don't know, they were keeping us apart. I'm not sure what's going on. So now we're here on the show together, and I'm so excited to have this time with you. How are you doing this morning, Trisha?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me, Olivia. Yeah, I don't know how we didn't cross paths at the office, but I'm so thrilled to be here. And like I said, thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, I think this is going to be a ton of fun because now we're getting the opportunity to get to know each other. Somehow everybody was guarding us from being able to do this before. I don't know, should we blame Joel?
I think so. Yeah, I think he can take it.
Yeah. Maybe he'll listen and he'll be like, I had nothing to do with this. You never
He was responsible for bringing us together today, so I guess you can't blame it all on him.
Yeah, exactly. So he's making up for it. So thank you, Joel, for putting us in contact with one another. So I'm excited that we have this time together, and just for me to get to know you better and share your story with everybody. But first of all, how are things going in Sheboygan? How's life at home? What are those adorable boys of yours up to?
Yeah, life is good. I was sharing a little bit. This morning was a little rocky, so I was worried that one of my boys was going to be joining me on my lap, but things are good. I have two wonderful boys, a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old. They are incredibly active and noisy and messy, but so sweet, and it's so much fun. So yeah, things are good. The summer is flying by. We've been doing a lot of stuff outside just as a family, trying to obviously stay safe and just enjoy the outdoors, just a lot of hiking. And, we're so fortunate in Sheboygan to have the lake by us and different beaches and hiking trails. So that's a lot of what we do. And it's been a ton of fun.
Yeah. So are you guys lake people? Are you water people? They love the water.
They love the water and just outdoors people. So Kohler Andre State Park is just a mile down the street from where I live. So we go there almost every weekend. My boys are early risers, so we're usually up by 6:30. And we're like, what can we do where we don't wake our neighbors up? So we tend to go hiking in the morning, and we'll stop at the beach and skip stones and stuff. I actually grew up in Fond du Lac, so just down the road from Sheboygan, which is on Lake Winnebago. And our family, my grandfather had property on the lake, so we grew up actually swimming and playing in Lake Winnebago. My parents now have my grandpa's property, so we take the boys there a lot, and it's just a ton of family memories. They hang out with their cousins, and we go boating and fishing and all that kind of fun stuff. So that's kind of my secret little summer vacation home, is my parents' house at the lake.
Yeah, that's amazing. I need to get a lake home. I've suddenly had this epiphany that now that we've been in our homes for so long, that I'm like, I maybe need more picturesque surroundings. I'm going to have to start working on this. But
yeah, no, we're very fortunate. So we're going there this weekend. We're calling it our camping weekend, where I have 2 siblings, and they each have 2 children. So then there's 6 grandkids. So we're all going to meet up at my parents' house and have a camping weekend, just on their land.
Yeah. Will you tent it up?
Typically I do. We will see. So I don't mind tent camping. I mean, I'll need a foam mat or something. I'm not laying on the rock hard ground.
Yeah.
But it's not really camping, because literally the house is right there. So you're using the house for the bathroom and showers and that kind of stuff. But it's just so much fun for the boys, and they just love it. So yeah, last year we tent camped. This year, we'll see. Saturday is really supposed to be steamy. So if it's 80 degrees in the middle of the night and humid, I think I might be opting for the AC.
Yeah. A little sauna session for 8 hours. I mean, who doesn't want that?
Right.
Oh my gosh. Somehow I did not raise early risers. I have to drag my kids out of bed, but everybody I know has early risers, and I am an early riser. but I'm like, well, I guess for the last 13 years, I've just gotten mornings to myself, after they got past a certain age. But
Oh, I wish. Someday.
so I always think life with boys is interesting. And I think motherhood of any children is like such an important role. It's such a huge part of our lives. But like, I remember when I just had my boys, and now I have a daughter as well, but I would have friends over that had girls, and like they would look at my boys like they were aliens, and they would just be like, what are your boys doing? I'm like, I think they're playing.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd be like, oh my gosh. And I'd see the girls over there like just, kind of like, what is happening right now? But yeah, but I think it's always fun for boys to have one another
Yeah.
growing up.
I totally agree. My boys, like I said, I mean, they are loud, they are active. Like their play style is, I mean, my sister has a daughter that's the same age as my oldest, and, like she'll sit and she'll, color or do crafts or whatever. And as much as I've tried to like get my boys, engaged in a variety of things, they just do not prefer to sit and do any kind of, coloring or painting or craft type of work. Science experiments they'll do. So I've brushed up on different science experiments, but like I said, they love to be outside. So it's running, it's climbing, any and everything they can climb.
Yeah.
They love sports, which I grew up playing sports as well. So we're very much a sports family, whether it's, basketball or soccer, anything that involves a ball that they can throw at each other. They're in heaven.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny. And I was just looking at my boys last night, and they're 13 and 10 now. And they were wrestling. And I was like, surely you've gotten to the point where this is not interesting. Like as a 13-year-old, like this can't be interesting to you anymore. But it was like, as soon as there was like quiet in the room for 5 minutes, it was like, got to do something about it. And they were just, so I'm told that they never grow out of it.
That's what I've heard as well, because I've had that conversation with some friends that have older boys, and they're like, yeah, that doesn't end.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad that they have each other. We talked about, just the way the world is right now, and the fact that you are a little bit isolated, in terms of trying to stay safe, and so it has really been a blessing that they have each other. When schools were canceled and they got sent home, that's who they played with, and so it's been really kind of a silver lining, if you will, just to see the way that their bond has grown over these last few weeks. And, they certainly wrestle and get on each other's nerves, but at the same time, you can just tell how much they love each other, and some of the sweet moments that you see in between the wrestling, it's like, okay, yes.
Yeah, that they're always going to protect one another.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is, it is a special thing. But, it's funny having a girl last in line. I would like to think she's a little tougher because she's had to defend herself to her brothers. But then every once in a while, I'm like, oh boy. I'm hoping they grow out of the phase where they are like, pounding on her, and they like will actually just go after any boys that might show up at the door.
There you go.
So I'm like, at some point, you guys have to switch directions from picking on her to picking on any boys that might be interested in her. So
absolutely. Oh,
yeah, hopefully they have a good 10 years to figure it out, or maybe 20. I have no plans for my daughter or any of my children to have relationships.
Right. Too soon.
Yeah, too soon. I'm like, let's pretend this doesn't exist in our lives, and we're not going to have to deal with it anytime soon. But I'll be happy to share any insight that I get. I have a little bit of a lead time on your boys, so
I will take you up on that for sure.
So yeah.
Motherhood, you need all the help you can get.
Yeah, I know. I was on a conversation or on a call with a guy once, and his boys are like, I don't know, I think like 21 and 19 or something like that. And he was like, you need any advice about raising teenage boys, you call me. I'm like, I am going to call you. Yep. I'm definitely going to call you. If you've gotten your kids successfully through high school, I'm definitely calling you. So yeah, it's good for us to have one another as parents, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yes. So as I noted before, you are at Acuity. We've worked on a few projects in the past. I don't remember specifically what they were. But I know that we've been on calls before and interacted in the past, but I'm just interested to know, what was your journey like getting to Acuity and now taking on this role? as the general manager of branding?
Yeah, and it's been kind of an interesting journey. So, reflecting back on it, insurance wasn't something that I started in. So just along my career, I sort of navigated in that direction. But I actually started, my background is in marketing. So I went to school at Marquette. And got a degree in international business and marketing. So not really using the international side of it, but actually in college, I knew I wanted to study abroad. So that's what kind of brought me into the international business degree program. But anyways, graduated with marketing and found myself at an advertising agency in Milwaukee after college. So spent a few years at the first advertising agency I was at, which was really, looking back on it, just a great place to sort of enter the workforce, because on the agency side for advertising and marketing, you get so much exposure into different types of projects, different industries from a client perspective. So I was really fortunate to be able to work on everything from branding work through, advertising. At that point in time, digital was just the small little thing. So it was more traditional types of advertising, but started to do some work in the digital space. And I worked on clients, everything from healthcare to consumer packaged goods. So it was just a really great learning opportunity, and worked there for a number of years. And then actually the agency that I was at closed their Milwaukee office. So found myself in the job hunt, which, was not something I had expected as well, and ended up moving to a different agency that specialized in digital marketing. So this was probably around 2007, 2008. Digital was still relatively young, but, clearly, things were moving in that direction. So, found an opportunity there and thought, this is a little different for me. It's going to stretch my skill set, but what better time to really get into digital, because I don't think it's going away, than now. So jumped into that and worked at that agency for a number of years. And then the housing bubble burst, and the economy really took that downturn, and that was a really challenging time to be at an advertising agency. I mean, all industries were having challenges, but from an agency perspective, a marketing agency perspective, clients were pulling back budgets, and it was a very, very challenging time. So at that point in my career, I'd been on the advertising agency side for over a decade, and I was kind of reflecting on, where do I want to go next? And actually, at that point in time, my husband had just graduated with his master's degree in accounting, so he took a new job at Kohler Company, and we were living down in Milwaukee. So we moved up to the Sheboygan area. I wasn't loving what I was doing, since the agency was really contracting, and was reflecting on, what do I want to do, with my life? Where do I want to go? So we moved up to Sheboygan, and I started interviewing at different companies up here. I interviewed with Acuity. That would have been probably in 2010. And the position I interviewed for didn't quite pan out. No big deal. I did end up moving from the agency I was at to a third marketing agency. And at that point, I pivoted roles because I was in account service and strategy. So really working with clients to help build their marketing campaigns and their plans, which was great, but I was getting a little bit burnt out. Like anything in the world, some clients are quote unquote better than others. Some are more demanding and expect you to answer the phone any time of day, weekends, etc. And I was just getting a bit burnt out. So I pivoted my role when I moved to the third agency to focus more on analytics. It was just, numbers have always been something that I'm really interested in. And as digital marketing, really came to maturity, there's so much data and so much analytics that you can see the impact of the campaigns that you're putting out there. And that really interested me. So was really fortunate at the third agency that I moved to have an opportunity to build an analytics team. So there was definitely, this passion around analytics that I had, and this opportunity to kind of grow something. So I did that for a couple of years, and I was loving what I was doing there, but it was in Milwaukee. I had my first son, and then had my second one on the way. And I was commuting down to Milwaukee. I was also spending a day a week down in Chicago and doing more coast to coast travel for new business. So it was getting a bit challenging from the family side of things. And then in 2015, Acuity had reached out to me since I had interviewed with them previously to start a conversation because they were looking to create this branding group within their marketing department. So I came in and interviewed with them and met with them, and that's really what launched me into the insurance world. So it was just a truly kind of alignment of stars, if you will, where I was able to bring, the experience that I had in digital marketing and analytics into just this incredible organization. One thing that was important to me as I was going through, that reflection that I mentioned at that second agency of what do I really want to do? I learned over my career that culture of where you're working is so incredibly important. So that was something that, I really kept top of mind, as I was moving forward. It just makes such a difference when you're at a place where you enjoy going to work, where you have great coworkers, where you have, you're empowered to do, the things that are right for your organization. And so that was really what kind of struck me with Acuity, was that balance of being able to bring something that I'm passionate about and the work that I've been doing to just an incredible organization. So that's what brought me into insurance. Long answer, I know, but hopefully that.
No, I think it's amazing to think about how all of that experience was just building. And so then you were in the right place. You had all the right background built. You've been expanding on your skills. And so I'm sure that the call from Acuity was just a no-brainer.
Yeah, it was surprising. And like I said, it was a little bit of a tough decision, though, I'll be honest, because I loved what I was doing and I had so much pride in the team, that I had built at the agency, and I felt like our work had just begun there. So it was with mixed emotions. I'll never forget, though, I was 7 months pregnant when I got the call from Acuity. So I remember sitting at the Milwaukee airport in the middle of winter, sitting in my car, getting ready to board a flight to California, talking with Acuity and thinking, this could be a really good thing for me and my family. And it just made sense. So yeah, I remember talking with them and I was like, I'd love to come in and meet with you. And just so I don't shock you when I walk in the door, I'm 7 months pregnant. And they are just so wonderful, so family oriented. It was, just a wonderful move. I actually changed jobs both times I was pregnant, which I don't recommend. It's incredibly stressful, but it certainly isn't something that you should shy away from if you need to. It's just, I remember the first time with my first son, I wasn't even telling people yet. I was probably 2.5 months pregnant.
Yeah.
And I had a colleague who had moved while she was pregnant as well to the agency I was moving to. So I remember calling her and I'm like, nobody knows this yet, but I'm pregnant. Like, I just want to know what your experience was really like. And she's like, oh my gosh, everybody was so wonderful. So yeah, it can be a little scary, but it can be done.
Yes.
It shouldn't be scary.
Yeah. You're like, I don't know what this change is going to be like. And I'm going through multiple transitions at the same time. It's basically
exactly.
You're trying to tackle so many different things. But, I think it's interesting because it's like culture is such a big deal. And I think for a long time, you knew it, but we didn't really talk about it in the corporate world or in the business world. And now it's such a big deal. You know it when you feel it.
Right.
I don't think you can fake your way through it. It can't be disingenuous. I think people pick up on that right away. Mm-hmm. And there is this certain sense that you get when you walk into the Acuity building that, like it has that very like homey feel to it. And, it's very welcoming, and, everybody there is just like, what are you doing here today? And not in the like, what are you doing here today? It is like, hey, what's going on? Like, it's just, they genuinely seem interested in the different projects that may be going on throughout the building. And so I feel like there is very much this, everybody's involved. Even if you're not directly involved, it's like everybody's involved.
Yeah, you're totally right. I think, and that was one thing as I was looking at making that move, it's a hard thing to to from the outside to believe in until you can experience it. So that makes it challenging as well. You know, you can read about, you know, it on somebody's website and it's like, okay, that all sounds great, but is it true? You know, it's like, it's a little bit hard to really believe it until you are a part of it sometimes. But like you said, you know, with Acuity, I just feel like you said, in the office, you know, when you're together, there's just this positive energy, there's this buzz. You know, even now that we're in this virtual environment, I love being able to get together, you know, through video conference and just seeing everybody. Everybody's always so, you know, you see the smiles, and it's not just like, okay, you know, we're down to business. You have those friendly conversations of, oh, you know, how's your son doing? What's going on with this? And everybody's just so friendly and so positive and upbeat. It really just brings everybody together as a team.
Yeah. So I think Acuity has always had, you know, a really solid reputation in the industry, and they've continued to build and grow. And I mean, and just like expand so quickly. I mean, and I'm sure like probably from the inside, you're like, oh, we've been working on this forever. And so on the outside, you're just like, oh my gosh, like they've gone into another state and all of this kind of stuff. But I do look at the reputation that they have with their agents, and they've done some pretty incredible work to make sure that they've maintained such a solid reputation. And so I think it does. I think when you have the culture right on the inside, it obviously just then starts to ooze out in the way that you interact with, you know, with your agent customers. So yeah, it's just a lot of tremendous work going on over there. So what makes up your day to day in at Acuity?
Yeah. Well, no day is ever the same as the last, as you know, I'm sure you're familiar with as well. But yeah, you know, our team, we do a really wide kind of variety of things within the digital marketing space. So, you know, our team touches everything from on the branding side, you know, anything that is, you know, using our logo, or, you know, when I first started, you've probably noticed the logo change. That was, you know, about 4.5 years ago. So, you know, early on, it was a lot of, you know, creating the logo and defining standards and making sure there is that consistency with how it's used. So that's a piece of it, is, you know, as we're putting anything out, just making sure that it's really reflecting not just visually with the logo, but like our brand tone and voice and how we're saying things, how we're speaking to people. You know, we try to make sure that we're not throwing too much, you know, insurance industry jargon at folks. We want to make sure that people understand, you know, in simple human language that we all use when we're talking to each other, what we're really trying to say. So, you know, we work really closely with project teams on that side of things. And then, you know, we helped our internal teams work on, you know, our website refresh, and we continue to help revise and improve our website. We work on our digital advertising. So just really trying to build brand awareness for Acuity. So as customers are looking for insurance or sitting down with their independent agent, you know, we're trying to do some of that legwork so that, you know, when an agent is sitting down with a customer, they hopefully have already heard of who Acuity is and what we stand for, so that, you know, the agent doesn't have to do all that heavy lifting for us. So we do that type of advertising. We have a team that does all of our content marketing. So we have a really robust blog that has, you know, articles and infographics and videos, where an individual on my team works really closely with customer teams that we have. I don't know if you're familiar with those, Olivia, but we have a cross-functional team across the organization. So folks from underwriting and claims and marketing, et cetera, who all center around like a specific industry within commercial lines. So trucking, manufacturing. And then we have consultants on staff who worked in those industries that are a member of those teams as well. So our team, from a content standpoint, works really closely with those customer teams to figure out like what are some of the trends that are happening in those industries. What are things that people would be interested in? And we help put together then that content that we can share out with customers and agents to help educate them on those different industries and trends that are happening in those industries. So that content marketing and social media marketing our kind of areas that we touch. So it's a pretty wide gamut. Keeps us busy. You know, those areas of digital marketing are continuously growing and expanding, and there's new things emerging, which is one of the things I love about the space, is sort of this continuous learning that happens. It never gets boring, and there's always new things to try and test.
Yeah. So as technology changes,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you guys, and Acuity's always been known as early adopters when it comes to technology. And so I'm sure you guys are making sure that you stay on the cusp of all of that stuff. So is Ask Cliff part of your efforts?
Yeah, I mean, and I think that actually came more from the trucking team themselves. You know, where we help is just, you know, how do we message that, and how do we bring that out to the customer? So those ideas, you know, generally start with those customer teams. You know, they have all those resources, and so they're like, okay, here's what we want to do, and so then we'll work with them to say, well, here's how we can bring that to people and help get the word out that he's available and that he can answer your questions. So
yeah. So I think it's always been fun to watch what you guys have come out with, and obviously I follow you guys on all of the social media, and so it is very active, and it's anything from like very industry specific stuff to like, hey, it's National Ice Cream Day.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think that there's always been this very this effort towards relatability, to make sure that whether it is an agent that's following you guys on social, or if it's a customer, it's gonna hit with the audience of whatever, you know, insurance education level, you know, that maybe, you know, that person may have when they're looking at it. So
yeah, and it's important to have that mix. You know, you can't just try to educate people all day long. You know, nobody wants to be, you know, pushed that much information. So it is a balancing act, and that's where, you know, you mentioned like the National Ice Cream Day. You know, some of those types of things are just a really great way to engage, you know, with our customers. And because we have such a fun brand, it's a great, you know, way for us as a brand to engage with people. We can be a little bit, you know, more whimsical at times. You know, obviously there's a balancing act there. But I think it's important to, again, you know, because we have a more, you know, fun, you know, upbeat brand, it gives us that platform where we can engage in some of those types of just, you know, silly days that exist. There's a day for everything. So we pick and choose. We don't do all of them, but it is fun.
Yeah. I think there's multiple days for everything. I just remember, for whatever reason, this sticks out to me. There was like National Bread Day or something. And like,
I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know why, like, I remember this, but I was like, I felt compelled to answer. Like, it was like, what is your favorite? Oh no, it's Banana Bread Day, specifically Banana Bread Day. And like, and it was like a tweet from Ben Salzman, and it was like, what is your favorite banana bread recipe? And I'm like, did he get inundated with like recipes? I was just like, I was so curious. I'm like, how did this turn out? But yeah.
For me,
so
it has to have chocolate chips in it.
Yeah, so it was kind of like people had secret ingredients. I think like, oh, I always have to have walnuts, or I put raisins in mine, or, you know, this is how you make the best banana bread. So I think there was just like, it was just kind of a fun, different way to interact. And, you know, Ice Cream Day, what's your favorite flavor, and all that kind of fun stuff. So I think it is driving engagement, obviously, and making sure that things don't always feel heavy in insurance, because it can get very heavy, and it can get very wordy, and it can get very legalese, and we can very easily get caught up in all of those things. But yeah, I think striking that balance is something that you guys have always excelled at. So
thank you.
Yeah. So I always think it's fun to see what might come out on any given day. But yeah, so tons of fun work going on there on a daily basis. How big is your team that you're working with?
So the branding team, it's 9 folks, including myself. So we started 5 years ago. We had 4 people then. So we've grown a lot in the last 5 years within our team, as we've added capabilities. You know, we started with sort of a smaller set of capabilities, and then we've expanded from there. So yeah, we have 9 strong now.
Yeah, lots of fun stuff going on. So when you look back at all of these experiences that have led up to, you know, taking on this role at Acuity, building this incredible team, continuing to build an incredible brand for Acuity as well, what has been one of the biggest lessons that you've learned along the way?
It's a great question. I think for me, it's really just having an openness to learning and trying new things. And it's kind of funny because, you know, I think some people early on in their careers are like, you know what, I'm just always going to learn. And I never really, I guess, felt like, at least I didn't internalize it that way. It was just sort of this willingness to try new things. You know, I mentioned on the advertising agency and marketing agency side, you have so many different projects that you have an opportunity to try. And so, you know, sometimes you have to, you know, lean into something new, and, you know, it might be a little bit scary, but you've got a team, you know, around you that you can ask questions of. So I think for me, it's just been, you know, carrying forward that openness to try new things, whether it's, you know, moving from the more traditional agency I was at into the digital agency. I mean, that was uncomfortable. It wasn't, you know, I lost sleep over it, but it was a great growth opportunity for me as well. So, you know, you have to trust your strengths, I think, and be open to learning new things. And I think that's, you know, when I look back at my career and certainly where I am today, that's something that I think has sort of crystallized a little bit for me now that I'm able to reflect back. And something that I champion with our team is how can we always make sure that we're learning and that we're trying new things, and not being too like flippant about it. You know, we don't want to just, you know, randomly try everything just to try it. It has to be intentional. But you also can't be afraid to try new things. And so it's that balancing act of just being open to learning new things and trying new things.
Yeah. And that can certainly be an intimidating process, but yeah, there's a lot to be said about, you know, taking those steps outside of your comfort zone. There's some really good stuff on the other side of that.
And, you know, sometimes it's just taking a step back from things and reflecting on. I was actually talking with our HR team not too long ago about just public speaking. Not my forte. I told them, I'm like, my freshman year of college, I had signed up for a speech class. I went in the first day and I was like, nope, this isn't happening. And I dropped the class and I took it later in my college career. But again, through the years, I've been in positions where, you know, you need to communicate out to teams, and whether that's just your immediate team or, you know, there's been times where I'm speaking in front of thousands of people. Again, not my favorite thing, but you learn how to do it. And I think, you know, you have to sometimes step back and just put things in perspective. You know, I often, especially now as a mom, you know, I look at my kids and I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to go out in front of this group today and speak, I know at the end of the day when I come home, my kids are still going to give me a hug and tell me they love me, you know. So you have to find, you know, those things that matter to you. And, you know, if you're doing something that pushes you, you know, it's a growth opportunity. It might push you outside of your comfort zone, but center on the things that, you know, are those pillars of strength for you. And whether that's, you know, a spouse or your children or a pet or, you know, whatever it is, you know, that gets you through the day, you know, sometimes those things can give you the confidence that you need to try something new.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, that's so true. I'm so glad you said that. I was listening to this interview, and it was a celebrity, and he was talking about how he bombed an interview on like a late night show. And he was like really beating himself up about it. And so he's talking to the host about it afterwards. He's like, I'm so sorry. Like, I just kind of get lost in things, and I didn't do a great job, and you know, I'm really sorry. And the guy's like, nope, nobody cares. He goes, I don't mean that in the way that like nobody cares about what you're doing. He's like, but you care much more about this than anybody else in the audience did. They don't know any different. So like, it's okay. Like, go home, hug your wife and kids. Like, you're good. And
the world keeps turning.
yeah, exactly. And it's so funny. You can get caught up in that stuff, but yeah, there is something pretty amazing when like your kids hug you, and they're not going to ask about your day for one. Maybe your kids do. Mine aren't like, how's your day
not
going?
so much.
Unless they want something. But they're just your mom. Yeah. And, you know, and they know you have a job. And so, so it does kind of like reset your perspective a little bit there. Kids have a way of doing that.
They do. Yeah. So when was this? Probably back in May. Acuity does quarterly town hall meetings. And so I had an opportunity at the last town hall meeting to present our new ad campaign. And so I was rehearsing the night before, and I was like, you know what, I'll do it in front of the kids, because it's probably good for them to know, like, you have to practice, and, here's how you get ready for a big presentation. So, I've got a highlighter in my hand, like the microphone, and the kids' remote control car as the clicker. And I'm practicing, and of course, they keep interrupting, and they're asking all these questions. And finally, I'm like, okay, you need to stop asking questions. Don't interrupt me. Let me get through it, and you can ask any question you want at the end. So I'm like, okay, one more time. And I say my first line, and my 5-year-old looks at me, and he goes, "I love you, Mama."
Oh.
And I was just like, okay. And that's what I held with me then, for that presentation. So, it's just those little moments, and like I said, my boys are loud and, active and crazy, but then there's those sweet moments like that just pull you through everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I do, sometimes I think my kids might be impressed with what I do, but then they're like, no.
They should be when they get older.
Yeah, I'll be like, your mom is cool. And they're like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, I do. I appreciate those sweet moments. And now it's funny, like having a 13-year-old that he will say, I love you back. My 10-year-old won't, but my 13-year-old will. So yeah, so it is, I feel like they kind of go through this, like, mom's not amazing. Well, I don't know that he thinks I'm amazing, but mom's whatever. And then now it's kind of like seeing those relationships blossom.
Good to know it boomerangs, because I'm still at they'll say it back to me, and when they stop, that's going to be a rough day. But I'll call you when I'm going through that and be like, what age did your 13-year-old start saying I love you again? Yeah,
it comes back around. So yeah, and maybe they'll never stop. I just know my boys kind of did, but yeah, I have one that's back with me. So who has made a big impact on your life?
There's so many people. Oh my goodness. There's a couple that come to mind. I mean, my mom, obviously, I think that's kind of the safe answer. But I think, one thing, my mother is she's such a kind and strong woman. And I think, again, looking back at things now, and I've talked to some folks about this in the past, she stayed at home with us at times, but she also worked, probably more part-time. But I think even just like seeing sort of her career evolution as, a daughter, gave me a lot of confidence and just really inspired me. But she's just amazing and so kind and loving. So, I can't answer that question without saying my mom. But aside from her, I think there's, a couple folks that stand out. Early in my career, the first agency that I was at, the managing director was a female, and we had a number of female managers. I reported to a female manager, and I feel like I was very fortunate because, by and large, I've always had really strong managers, and it can make such a big difference. And I think that's one reason why I've always tried to make sure that I'm just really mentoring and growing, my team as well, to encourage them to be future leaders. And that was sort of the philosophy of my early managers. So yeah, I mean, I think of, the managing director at the agency I was at, just such a kind manager. A lot of times, especially females, I think, feel like they need to be really hard to get action out of folks. And, she would be firm when she needed to be, obviously, but always just so kind and caring, and worked really hard to build up her team, and to find people's strengths and to mentor and grow people. And so it was that sort of spirit of, how can we help people grow, and that recognition that this agency isn't about me, it's about how I can grow, the future talent that we'll have. So that was something that, I just was fortunate to sort of see early on in my career, and I've been able to kind of carry forward throughout my career as well.
Yeah. So obviously you've had some great female leaders and role models, and I'm sure that you're now modeling that yourself as a leader. But how do we get more women to take that step into leadership? Because I think it can be, for whatever reason, for a lot of reasons, it's a little bit more intimidating for women to make that leap into a leadership position, to raise their hand, to go for it. How do we get more of that going?
Yeah, I mean, it is a challenge. And I think, you kind of touched on it earlier. I think oftentimes we're our own worst critic. And so, the voice in our head tells us like, oh, that's scary, or you can't, or what if you fail, those types of things. And I think a lot of it to me is, how do we nurture people's strengths? How do you celebrate the things that have made you successful and lean into those instead of focusing on like, oh, this one project didn't work out really well, and that may be a strike against me, and so maybe I'm not, well suited for being a leader. It's, how have you worked together as a team, or how have you stepped up and taken a lead, on a project? And all of those types of things are examples of leadership.
Yeah.
I think, for me, being a leader, isn't about telling people what to do. It's about mentoring people. And I think, leadership, I'll say it's not really for everyone. I look at my kids. My oldest is just a natural leader.
Mm-hmm.
My youngest, he likes to just be kind of the life of the party. And I'm not sure, granted he's 5, so maybe that'll change. But it is, one of those things where for me, I've always been, somebody that I've loved team sports, and I've always been, a more vocal person, within those teams, and encouraging, other teammates to, to do certain things, or that they can, and kind of coming at it from that positive perspective. That's just sort of in my nature. And so it's been sort of channeling those things to say, okay, from a leadership standpoint, how do I motivate and inspire, a team to do what we need them to do. There's certainly challenges. I think one of the biggest challenges, and I think a lot of leaders face this, is trusting your team. I will tell you, when I went on maternity leave my first time, that was terrifying. And I was like, but we have all this stuff we need to do, and I need to do this, and I need to do that. And my manager at the time, he sat me down. He's like, you have an amazing team. You need to trust your team. They will get things done, and the world will keep turning.
Yeah.
And when you come back from leave, you'll step back into it, and they will have carried things forward. And it's hard, it's hard to let go and trust your team to do that. Maternity leave forced it. I didn't really have a choice, 9 months, that baby was coming out, and I needed to step away. So it was scary, but it was really a blessing for me. And I think, that has helped me to trust your team. One of the things I always think of too, from a leadership standpoint, like I said, it's not telling people what to do, it's demonstrating, how the team should operate. And I very much live by the mentality that I shouldn't be delegating things to people that I wouldn't do myself. And there's obviously balance with that. I can't be doing every little detail all the time as a general manager, but I have to be willing to do that stuff. And there's a couple examples of that I think of. There was some project work where we were recruiting folks for research. And so there was some like cold calling involved to try to find people. I'm not a salesperson. I don't like cold calls. And I was like, you know what? This needs to get done. Not my favorite thing to do, but I'll take half the list and you take half the list and we'll get through it together, And so I think it's those moments where you can demonstrate to your team that you're willing to roll up your sleeves and do the same things that need to get done that just speak volumes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of meandered a bit, but back to your core question, how do we get more females into leadership? I think it's really just helping to recognize those strengths, and how do we lean into those strengths? Because the more you focus on those positives and building the confidence, the more that some of that self-doubt can take a backseat.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that, there is like a confidence crisis, and I've lived it. I think and there's probably not a human that hasn't lived it.
Yeah.
But I do think it is a little more prevalent among women. And so, I think anything that we can do to, it's like all those little bits of encouragement, I think, are a big deal. Mm-hmm. They all add up.
And I think too, if you're able to, like what you're doing, Olivia, I think this is great. Find other, strong women, whether they're leaders or just, folks that you can bounce ideas off of, and find a network, make connections with folks, and, use each other's experiences to really kind of help frame your experiences and how you might find a path forward. I think there's just so much power in hearing other people's stories and how they got through, maybe tough times or different challenges, to see how that might influence your course forward.
Yeah. And honestly, like I was talking with somebody about this earlier this morning. Like, I get so much out of having these conversations with people. And so I've been very lucky to have this show that I can learn from everybody. And so hopefully other people are able to get some takeaways from it as well. But yeah, there's so much power in networking. I think you find a very generous community once you start just like putting yourself out there, and
yeah,
there's so much insight and wisdom that people have to offer. So what are future plans for you? Is it just getting kids into school, or you got some bigger things going on?
Yeah, hopefully there'll be some school this fall. Getting through each week, I think, is kind of a milestone for us right now. But yeah, the future, from a family standpoint, like I said, my boys are active. They love sports. I definitely see a lot of bleacher time for me in the future, watching them play sports. But just trying to have fun, and from a career standpoint, I think it's really just continuing to grow and be open to new things. That's one of the things that I love about the digital marketing space that I am fortunate to be working within, is it's constantly growing and changing, and so it's exciting. There's never a dull moment. It can be a bit daunting at times, but you take it a day at a time, and you try new things, and I think that's just so exciting. So I think for me, from a professional standpoint, it's really just continuing to learn, continuing to improve what we're doing. Our focus right now is really, how do we build our brand awareness, with our customers, build it with agents, especially new agents who aren't as familiar with Acuity, and how do we make sure that we're connecting with them in meaningful ways. So, I think that's one of the big shifts that's happening within marketing. It's not about just pushing things out. It's how do we create a relevant experience?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of one of the exciting things that we're really working towards is, how do we really understand our audience, whether it's an agent or a customer, and how do we create an experience that they want to be a part of, and we can learn from them, and we can share our knowledge with them. So that's kind of what drives me is, how do we build those relationships, and what I'm excited about with our future.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing and I know like most industries are probably relationship driven, right? Like you can't probably get away from that in very many industries, but I've always felt like that was such a, common thread, no matter what part of the insurance industry you're in. It's very relationship driven. Either you're building relationships, you're maintaining relationships, you're trying to create memorable experiences. Like it's so, but that's part of what attracts people to it. Well, me anyway. I mean, that's part of what I love about it. So yeah, but I think that you guys are doing a good job. And so I look forward to seeing what you continue to come up with. I know I'm not on the agency side, so I don't get to interact with it quite as much, but I know just continuing to follow on social has been fun for me to just watch that evolve for you guys. And I know that the evolution will never stop, I'm sure. So I have one final question. Are you ready?
I think so. Hit me. Hit me with it.
So if you got to play DJ for 5 minutes, you get to pick the song. What are you going to choose?
Oh, boy. So I'll admit I'm not a huge music buff. And a lot of the music that I listen to now tends to be Kids Bop. So that's in the forefront of my brain.
Yeah. You got a favorite Kids Bop jam there?
But you know what? One of my favorite all-time songs, and this is super sappy, so I guess take it for what it is, but one of my favorite songs is True Colors by Cyndi Lauper.
Oh, yeah.
I love the message of that song. And it actually, so top of mind, it was in the Trolls movie. It was remade. And when it came out, I told the kids, I'm like, oh, this is one of my favorite songs. And they were just like, oh, whatever, Mom. But I just, that song has always been just one of my favorites from a message standpoint. Little sappy, I know, but.
No, not sappy at all. I love it. I haven't thought about that song in a long time. I think that's amazing. That takes me back to like, I don't know how old I was, but I mean, I feel like I was pretty young when that song came out. But,
yeah.
oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, at some point I'm going to make a soundtrack of all of these amazing songs that my guests have suggested. And so, yeah, I think it's so great to get to know you from all different angles, including your choice of music. And we are also a kids pop house, so I totally get it. I don't even know what the regular singers sound like the original artist. I don't know. I only know what like a 10-year-old sounds like singing that song.
I totally agree.
And I know only the clean version of songs. So, well, this has been so much fun, Trisha. I am so thankful that I could steal this hour from you and get to know you a little bit better. And, whenever I get back up to Sheboygan and the office is open again, I look forward to getting to meet you in person.
Absolutely.
And we'll have Joel set it up. Well, actually, now you and I can just talk directly with one another. So
you bet. No, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun, and really appreciate being on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, take care. Enjoy the rest of your summer, and give those boys an extra hug.
Will do. Thank you.